Hello, welcome to my barometer on how much rain we've had overnight. Although it's not raining much at the moment, it looks like we did have quite serious rain and maybe even some flooding. We'll cover that later on in the program. We'll also get to the fallout from the horrendous incident in the capital of South Korea, Seoul, over the weekend. If you get a moment, please subscribe to the channel. Welcome to TNT. Good morning, folks. Thank you very much for joining us on TNT. It's Monday, and there was a major story during the weekend in South Korea. 151 people or so died in a sort of a crowd crush in a party area of the capital, Seoul. So we'll start today with some of the fallout in the reporting of that particular story. We go to The Nation, and Halloween stampede in South Korea leaves at least 151 dead. They also report that the first Thai death is confirmed in the Halloween stampede, and saying that at least one Thai was among the 151 people killed in a Halloween stampede in Seoul on Saturday night. Further to that report, South Korea's Fire Department reports that 19 of the 151 people killed during the incident were foreigners. The main South Korean news agency added that the nationals from Iran, Uzbekistan, China and Norway were among the dead. So I thought we'd just quickly whip around to see how some of the other media are reporting the fallout from this incident. And the Straits Times in Singapore reporting the Itaewon crush, a perfect storm that could have been prevented. And they say the crowd crush that killed over 150 people is said to have been a perfect storm, with the area's unique layout and unexpected human congestion converging to create one of South Korea's worst tragedies. This from news.com.au, a Murdoch publication in Australia. Friends confirm death of 23-year-old Australian woman Grace Rached in Seoul Halloween crowd crush. And a young Sydney woman on a trip of a lifetime with friends has been identified as the Australian crushed to death in a horror stampede. She was 23-year-old and her death was confirmed to the Daily Telegraph. From USA Today, like a hell. Relatives search for loved ones in Seoul after Halloween crowd surge leaves 153 dead. And from the BBC, South Korea Halloween crush, I was trapped on a ledge watching people die. And this story by Jean McKenzie says survivors of the deadly Seoul Halloween crush have been speaking of their horror at watching friends and strangers suffocate in an alleyway as dance music blared into the night. So we're sure to hear a lot more about that horrible disaster. 151 lives lost. Probably the worst disaster in South Korea. I'm thinking back to 2014 where they had the ferry disaster and 306 people died in that. 250 of them were students from one particular high school. So South Korea will be in mourning today. Let's go to our next story today from Thai PBS World. The Thai government defends foreign land ownership plan. And as we sort of expected, this has started to become a little bit political as well. The government's plan to allow foreigners to own a limited amount of land in Thailand is intended to benefit the Thai people, according to a government spokesperson. The government is not selling off the country to foreigners, as alleged by some. This has come from a government spokesperson yesterday, responding to the Per-Thai parties, that's one of the main opposition parties here in Thailand, their opposition to the plan. She explained that only 4 specific groups of foreigners who have already obtained long-term resident visas. Now, that's something that I wasn't aware about when I was reading up the other day about people buying land or foreigners buying land in Thailand. Apparently, they've got to have a long-term resident visa and who meet the requirements. The word requirement should mean 40 million baht of investments into bonds or investments in Thailand, and they'll be allowed to own up to 1 rai of land for residential purposes. Then it goes to list the 4 people in the long-term resident visa category. So I'm wondering if that's a promotion for the long-term resident visa or whether they're actually trying to support the ownership of land by foreigners. I just don't think there's going to be that many people taking up that particular offer, apart from the fact, as outlined in that article, that you have to have a long-term resident visa, which has its own humps to climb over to get. You've also got to have a loose 40 million baht to invest in stocks and shares and stuff in Thailand. So that's quite a few provisions just for the honour of owning a block of land. I don't think the Thais have got that much to worry about it, but it appears that the Pheu Thai party, the main opposition party, who I'm fairly confident will probably get the largest amounts of votes in the next election, if they're saying, no, we're against it, then they're may not be much future for that particular policy. Now, I should thank our sponsors, 5 Star Marine, where you can hop into a boat like this and you can go out and see one of the beautiful islands around Phuket. So thank you very much to 5 Star Marine for their support of the program. And for you, thank you for your support. The best thing that you can do is click that like button, even the dislike button if you don't like the program, and subscribe to the channel. That would be the best thing to help me. You're watching the TNT program. It's Monday, and thank you very much for joining us. We've got the Apec meeting coming up. That's the Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation on November. Well, it sort of goes from the 16th to the 19th. But the world leaders, the big meetings are going to be held on the 18th and 19th of November, and Bangkok and 2 or 3 provinces immediately around it. They've given people a public holiday on those dates, hoping that they might be able to clear the roads a bit. It'd be a bit embarrassing to sort of be stuck in Sukhumvit Road traffic trying to get to the APEC meeting. Hello, Prayut, going to be a little late. But the story today from Thai PBS World is that Biden will be joining the ASEAN summit, Harris to attend APEC. US President Joe Biden will use his visit to Cambodia next month, and the Vice President Kamala Harris will represent Biden in attending the meeting of the Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation. So it looks like the US President is going to be heading off to the ASEAN meeting instead. And just noting here that it says it had been earlier reported that Biden decided to skip the APEC meeting because he has to host a wedding reception for his granddaughter at the White House. So it looks like APEC will avoid sort of a confrontation or the opportunity to see one of those photos with President Xi Jinping, President Vladimir Putin and President Joe Biden all in the same photo. Who'd be standing where? That would have been interesting. Anyway, we won't get to see that particular photo. To another regional story, and tropical storm batters Philippines' capital before exit. Just noting that this is a little bit late for a big tropical storm in the South China Sea. Let's go to the main story here. And emergency workers have scrambled to rescue residents trapped by floods in and around the Philippine capital, Manila, yesterday, as tropical storm Nalgai swept out of the country after killing at least 48 people. The storm raked across the main island of Luzon overnight. And just noting the 4th paragraph, in the Manila suburb, rescuers swam through 3-metre floodwaters. So just walk out your front door and imagine 3 metres. That's nearly halfway up the second story. So that's a pretty deep flood. And they were trying to reach 60 people, including children, marooned on an upper floor of a building. So let's just see what's happening with that storm, noting that usually these tropical storms and typhoons in this particular part of the world travel from the east towards the west. So there we've got Philippines to the left, we've got the Southeast Asian coastline there on the right. So it looks like that's sort of building from not just a tropical storm but into a typhoon as it crosses westwards, or I think this one's crossing in a sort of a northwesterly direction across the South China Sea. That's roughly the direction we believe it's heading. You've got Hainan Island there in the middle of the picture, and over here I've just sort of tried to explain where things are. You've got Ubon Ratchathani there, Bangkok, Phnom Penh, Ho Chi Minh City and Vientiane. So we're not sure at the moment whether that storm is going to be making landfall on the Indo-Chinese part of Southeast Asia, but we'll certainly be keeping an eye on that. I think the winds at the moment are reported to be up to about 120 kilometres per hour, which is a pretty serious storm. Recreational use doubles. This is from the Bangkok Post. The Centre of Addiction Studies has found the number of people aged under 20 who use cannabis recreationally has doubled since the plant was formally decriminalised last year. This study from the Centre of Addiction Studies, and the second paragraph there, the increase has caused concern among critics of the policy over the plant's impact on the physical and psychological health of young people, especially as the effort to pass the Cannabis and Hemp Control Bill is currently going nowhere. And this is the big important part of this story. I understand a lot of people believe that Thailand's rushed to liberalise its laws about cannabis, but it has become a political football. And now we're in a situation where, with the election looming, everybody's approaching this particular issue from a will it get votes or not point of view, rather than that if it's any good for Thailand in the first place. So an interesting position we are in with this particular issue. Not good for the people that rushed out and opened some stores, or in fact invested a lot of money on cannabis sort of cultivation. So the Centre of Addiction Studies says the increase in recreational cannabis use among Thai youth underlines the need to closely monitor the impact of the policy. The second paragraph there, the use of cannabis for purpose other than medical or research is a sensitive issue, and as such, a good system needs to be in place to control access to the plant. Why they didn't have some sort of guidelines in place before the decriminalisation back on June the 6th beggars belief. I mean, this is quite a big change to Thailand, and it looks like that they've botched it up to the stage where it's just never going to happen. And it may remain for at least another 4, 5, 6 months until we get a new parliament where we've got this previously illicit drug now decriminalised and no proper guidelines on how it should be supervised or controlled, or how much land you're allowed to use to grow hemp and cannabis. Difficult situation. And a gentleman, a lecturer with the Prince of Songkhla University's Faculty of Medicine, said while the negative impacts of cannabis use are still manageable, there has been a marked increase in the number of patients seeking treatment. And just noting here this particular statistic, patients seeking treatment for psychological side effects following cannabis consumption accounted for 3% of all ER admissions nationwide last year, and the figure is closer to 17%. So those people who are opposing the decriminalisation and trying to force the cannabis bill out of Parliament are going to be able to use these sort of statistics as part of their argument. Further on in that article, a child and adolescent psychiatrist at Sivira Hospital says a legal mechanism is needed to ensure producers of cannabis-infused food and beverages accurately list the concentration of psychoactive ingredients in their products. We noted last week that they've tried to clarify the exact amount, and the amounts were so small, I was wondering if somebody sneezed in the laboratory whilst they were doing their testing, it could throw the whole thing out of balance. I think the whole situation at the moment is untenable and, well, not only unprofessional, but a completely botched introduction of an important social, well, potentially an important social policy. To our next story today, and The Nation reports that Thailand's sexiest race sees 3,000 runners streak down Pattaya Beach. Bit of good news. Well, the weather has been good over the weekend generally in much of the country, excepting last night here in Phuket. I'll get to that in a moment. But to this report, Thailand's largest and sexiest beach running event saw 3,000 Thai and foreign participants race down Pattaya Beach in front of Central Pattaya, and they indeed were the sponsor. The Pattaya International Bikini Beach Race has been held since 2015. I like this, to promote Pattaya's image as a sports tourism destination among Thai and international tourists. Indeed, when I think Pattaya, I think sports tourism destination. And here we are, lovely photo there for the cameras of the people. Not really many bikinis or bare chests showing there, but here we are. This is from Trevor of Buzz in Pattaya. I pinched a bit of his video. Good morning, Trevor. And people there taking part in the beach. I've got a funny feeling there's more spectators than there are runners. So great to see people enjoying a good fun run there on Pattaya Beach yesterday. The sun was out and everybody had a great time. Thanks very much to Buzzin' Pattaya for that little bit of video. To Phuket now, and there was floods. Floods last night. This is at the Tesco Samkong intersection. The video taken from Tesco, and that's the main intersection. There's an underpass under there. What happened to the underpass? A couple of cars already stuck. That's some serious rain. And, oh, there's my doctor across the road. Pretty serious floods there in Samkong. It all happened around about midnight last night. There was also rain over the weekend that flooded parts of Patong, Kamala, Cheung Talay. So, yeah, I'm just wondering what's happened to that stretch of road that they've opened up for motorbikes and pedestrians getting across Patong Hill after the rain last night. My pool filled up around about 1.5 inches. So that's some pretty serious rain overnight. But with that, I hope your day gets a bit drier. Hope you see some sunshine. I thank you very much for tuning in. And I thought we might do this all again tomorrow. And we hope to see you then.